Now that you've learned about the science behind French toast, now it's time to make a very delicious, the best French toast recipe that I have had. So let's go ahead and make the French toast. It's super, super easy. All you will need are 2 eggs, a little bit of flour, a little bit of sugar, vanilla, cinnamon, bread, and milk. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to go ahead and crack your eggs and mix them up with a fork. It is now time to add 1/3 of a cup of milk and whisk that up. We will now add a teaspoon of vanilla. And a good trick when baking is to do unless the recipe states otherwise, do all of your wet ingredients first or together. Now we're going to do 1/4 cup of sugar. Now the secret to this recipe is that you add a little flour. The flour is what gives it the crisp on the outside but keeps the fluff on the inside. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of flour. We do want it heaping in this case because we technically want closer to 2.5 tablespoons, but if we just do 2 heaping, that will work out. Go ahead and mix it up. You're going to start to find that after this, you're going to get some lumps and some bubbles. So it's important to just kind of use your fork to flatten those out. You can also use a whisk, or I even found one time if you use like a potato masher to kind of get some of those bumps out. So go ahead and whisk it up till it gets as smooth as possible. Now we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. If you like cinnamon, you can add a little extra. What I'm going to do just to make it a little bit easier for the filming is I'm going to pre-dip my bread, and then we'll go and we will cook them on top of the stove in a pan about medium-high with butter that's already melted. Now I'm just using good old regular bread. This recipe is especially delicious if you use a loaf of French bread or even Italian bread, and it's great because even if it is not quite the freshest, it's okay if it's stale, as you've learned, because the egg and the milk will soften that up. So you're going to push the bread down. You're going to let it sit for about 10 seconds. We want not just to get the bread wet, but we want it to actually soak in. So about 10 seconds on each side. Then flip it over and do it again. All right, you're going to do that to each piece of bread. This is actually the half recipe, and so you probably can get, depending on the thickness and size of your bread, you can probably get 4 to 5 pieces of French toast out of this halved recipe. At the end, I will go ahead and put both the halved recipe and also the full recipe. So go ahead and finish dipping all of your pieces of bread. Now that your pan is hot, and kiddos, this is where you need mom or dad's help. You're going to put just a little bit of butter. You're going to melt it. Make sure that the entire bottom of the pan is totally covered with the butter. And again, you want the heat to be about medium high. You'll need to watch it carefully so it doesn't burn, but it's better at a slightly higher temperature. Once the butter is melted and totally coated on the bottom of the pan, you're going to carefully lay each of your pieces of bread in. Looks like I will be able to get 2. And now you're just going to let it cook. Again, you're going to check it to make sure that it doesn't burn, but you want to let each side cook undisturbed for about 2 to 3 minutes so it gets a really nice crisp on the outside. If your pan's a little bit smaller, you may need to turn the bread around just to make sure that it gets evenly browned, but again, 2 to 3 minutes per side. Okay, it's been about 3 minutes. We're going to flip it over. You may also want to add a little bit of extra butter. So I usually just put the butter down, lift it up, and we'll flip it around. And again, once both sides are finished, you can go ahead and plate them. And then we'll look at our finished product. All right, and here you see our finished product, and you can make it a little bit fancy by putting just a little bit of powdered sugar on the French toast. If you have some fruit, you can slice that up. The whole meal took less than 10 minutes to prepare and get ready. I'm so glad that you joined me today for a little bit of breakfast in science. I'd love to hear how your recipe works out, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.